Section 9, Hazardous Materials. This section covers 9.1, Intent of the Regulations. 9.2, Hazardous Materials, Transportation, Who Does What. 9.3, Communication Rules. 9.4, Loading and Unloading. 9.5, Bulk Packaging Marking, Loading and Unloading. 9.6, Hazardous Materials, Driving and Parking Rules. 9.7, Hazardous Materials, Emergencies. 9.8, Hazardous Materials, Glossary. This section is designed to assist you in understanding your role and responsibilities in hauling hazardous materials. Hazardous materials are products that pose a risk to health, safety, and property during transportation. The term is often shortened to HazMat, which you may see on road signs, or to hazardous materials in government regulations. Hazardous materials include explosives, various types of gas, solids, flammable and combustible liquids, and other materials. Because of the risks involved and the potential consequences these risks impose, all levels of government regulate the handling of hazardous materials. Note: to ensure public safety, Department of Motor Vehicles examiners will not conduct commercial skills tests in vehicles displaying vehicle placards per California Vehicle Code subsection 27903. This includes vehicles carrying hazardous materials and/or wastes, as well as vehicles that have not been purged of their hazardous cargo. California Vehicle Code subsection 152. 78 paragraph A subparagraph 4 requires an H, endorsement for those who drive a vehicle requiring placards. Your commercial driver's license tests will be based on your knowledge of federal transportation requirements. Text preceded by California refers to state, non-federal requirements that also apply when driving in California. The state requirements are strictly enforced. The hazardous materials regulations and common references are found in Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Parts 171 through 180. The hazardous materials table in the regulations contains a list of these items. However, this list is not all-inclusive. Whether or not a material is considered hazardous is based on its characteristics and the shipper's decision on whether or not the material meets the definition of a hazardous material in the regulations. Due to the constantly changing nature of government regulations, it is impossible to guarantee absolute accuracy of the materials in this section. You need to have an up-to-date copy of the complete regulations. Included in these regulations is a complete glossary of terms. The regulations require vehicles transporting certain types or quantities of hazardous materials to display diamond-shaped square-on-point warning signs called placards. You must have a commercial driver's license with an H, endorsement, before you drive any size vehicle that is used to transport hazardous materials as defined in Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subsection 3, 8, 3.5. You must pass a knowledge test about the regulations and requirements to get this endorsement. Note: a commercial learner's permit holder is prohibited from transporting hazardous materials. Everything you need to know to pass the knowledge test is in this section. However, this is only the beginning. Most drivers need to know much more on the job. You can learn more by reading and understanding the federal and state rules applicable to hazardous materials, as well as attending hazardous materials training courses. Your employer, colleges, universities, and various associations usually offer these courses. You can get copies of the federal regulations through your local government printing office bookstore and various industry publishers. Union or company offices often have copies of the rules for driver use. Find out where you can get your own copy to use on the job. The regulations require training and testing for all drivers involved in transporting hazardous materials. Your employer or a designated representative is required to provide this training and testing. Hazardous materials employers are required to keep a record of training for each employee as long as that employee is working with hazardous materials and for 90 days thereafter. The regulations require that hazardous materials employees be trained and tested at least once every 3 years. All drivers must be trained in the security risks of hazardous materials transportation. This training must include how to recognize and respond to possible security threats. The regulations also require that drivers have special training before driving a vehicle transporting certain flammable gas materials or highway route-controlled quantities of radioactive materials. In addition, drivers transporting cargo tanks and portable tanks must receive specialized training. Each driver's employer or their designated representative must provide such training. Some locations require permits to transport certain explosives or bulk hazardous wastes. States and counties also may require drivers to follow special hazardous materials routes. The federal government may require permits or exemptions for special hazardous materials cargo such as rocket fuel. Find out about permits, exemptions, and special routes for the places you drive. Permits. A permit or route restriction may be required to transport some classifications and quantities of hazardous materials. Contact the California Highway Patrol and the Department of Transportation for information. Permits and registrations may also be required for hazardous and medical waste transportation. Contact the Department of Toxic Substances Control and the Department of Health Services, respectively, for information. If you apply for an original or renew an H endorsement, you must undergo a Transportation Security Administration Federal Security Threat Assessment and a background records check. You start the Transportation Security Administration background records check after you apply for your commercial driver's license at the Department of Motor Vehicles, complete all appropriate knowledge tests, and submit a valid medical form. You must submit fingerprints, a fee, and any additional information required to one of the Transportation Security Administration's designated agents. You must also provide the Transportation Security Administration agent with a copy of your commercial driver's license permit and one of the following ID documents: a California driver's license ID card, an out-of-state driver's license, your commercial learner's permit accompanied by a Department of Motor Vehicles photo receipt. For a list of Transportation Security Administration agent sites, visit link unavailable or call 1-855-347-8371. California Hazardous Materials Transportation License. Every motor carrier that transports the following hazardous materials in California must have a Hazardous Materials Transportation License issued by the California Highway Patrol. California Vehicle Code Subsection 3200.5. Hazardous materials shipments, unless specifically accepted, for which the display of placards is required per California Vehicle Code Subsection 27903. Hazardous material shipments in excess of 500 pounds, transported for a fee, which would require placarding if shipped in greater amounts in the same manner. A valid legible copy of the carrier's hazardous materials transportation license must be carried in the vehicle and be presented to any peace officer or duly authorized employee of California Highway Patrol upon request. California Code of Regulations, Title 13, Subsection 1, 160.3, Paragraph G, Subparagraph 2. This is in addition to the federal hazardous materials registration that may be required under Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subsection 1, 07.601. 9.1. Intent of the regulations. 9.1.1. Contain the material. Transporting hazardous materials can be risky. The regulations are intended to protect you, those around you, and the environment. They tell shippers how to package materials safely and drivers how to load, transport, and unload them. These are called containment rules. 9.1.2. Communicate the risk. Shippers must warn drivers and others about the material's hazards to communicate the risk. The regulations require shippers to put hazard warning labels on packages, provide proper shipping papers, emergency response information, and placards. These steps communicate the hazard to the shipper, carrier, and driver. 9.1.3. Assure safe drivers and equipment. You must pass a knowledge test about transporting hazardous materials to get an H endorsement on a commercial driver's license. To pass the test, you must know how to identify what hazardous materials are, safely load shipments, properly placard your vehicle in accordance with the rules, safely transport shipments, learn the rules and follow them. Following the rules reduces the risk of injury from hazardous materials. Taking shortcuts by breaking rules is unsafe. Non-compliance with regulations can result in fines and jail. Inspect your vehicle before and during each trip Law enforcement officers may stop and inspect your vehicle. When stopped, they may check your shipping papers, vehicle placards, commercial driver's license H, endorsement, and your knowledge of hazardous materials. 9.2. Hazardous materials transportation. Who does what? 9.2.1. The shipper sends products from one place to another by truck, rail, vessel, or airplane. Uses the hazardous materials regulations to determine the products. Identification number. Proper shipping name. Hazard class. Packing group. Correct packaging. Correct label and markings. Correct placards. Must package, mark and label the materials. Prepare shipping papers. Provide emergency response information and supply placards. Must certify on the shipping paper that the shipment has been prepared according to the rules, unless you are pulling cargo tanks supplied by you or your employer. 9.2.2. The carrier takes the shipment from the shipper to its destination. Before transportation, checks that the shipper correctly described, marked, labeled, and otherwise prepared the shipment for transportation. Refuses improper shipments. 9.2.3. The driver makes sure the shipper identified, marked, and labeled the hazardous materials properly. Refuses leaking packages and shipments. Placards the vehicle when loading if required. Safely transports the shipment without delay. Follows all special rules about transporting hazardous materials. Keeps hazardous materials, shipping papers, and emergency response information in the proper place. Reports accidents and incidents involving hazardous materials to the proper government agency when the incident occurs while the driver is in physical control of the shipment. 9.3. Communication rules. 9.3.1. Definitions. Some words and phrases have special meanings when talking about hazardous materials. Some of these may differ from meanings you are used to. The words and phrases in this section may be on your test. The meanings of other important words are in the glossary at the end of Section 9. A materials hazard class reflects the risks associated with it. There are 9 different hazard classes. The types of materials included in these 9 classes are in Figure 9.1. A shipping paper describes the hazardous materials being transported. Shipping orders, bills of lading, and manifests are all shipping papers. Figure 9.6 shows an example of a shipping paper. Class 1 explosives. 1.1. Mass explosion dynamite. 1.2. Projection hazard. Flares. 1.3. Fire hazard. Display fireworks. 1.4. Minor explosion ammunition. 1.5. Very insensitive. Blasting agents. 1.6. Extremely insensitive explosive devices. Class 2 gases. 2.1 flammable gases propane. 2.2 non-flammable gases helium. 2.3 poisonous toxic gases fluorine compressed. Class 3 flammable liquids. No division gasoline. Class 4 flammable solids. 4.1 flammable solids ammonium picrate wetted. 4.2 spontaneously combustible white phosphorus. 4.3 dangerous when wet sodium. Class 5 oxidizers. 5.1 oxidizers ammonium nitrate. 5.2 organic peroxides methyl ethyl ketone peroxide. Class 6 poisonous and infectious. 6.1 poison toxic material potassium cyanide. 6.2 infectious substances anthrax virus. Class 7 radioactive. No division uranium. Class 8 corrosives. No division battery fluid. Class 9 miscellaneous hazardous materials. No division polychlorinated biphenyls. None other regulated material domestic. No division food flavorings, medicines. Unclassified combustible liquids. No division fuel oil. After an accident or hazardous material spill or leak, you may be injured and unable to communicate the hazards of the materials you are transporting. Firefighters and police can prevent or reduce the amount of damage or injury at the scene if they know what hazardous materials is being carried. Your life and the lives of others may depend on quickly locating the hazardous materials shipping papers. For that reason, the rules require shippers to describe hazardous materials correctly and include an emergency response telephone number on shipping papers. Carriers and drivers to quickly identify hazardous materials shipping papers or keep them on top of other shipping papers and keep the required emergency response information with the shipping papers. Drivers to keep hazardous materials shipping papers in or on. A pouch on the driver's door. Clear view within immediate reach while the seatbelt is fastened while driving. The driver's seat went out of the vehicle. 9.3.2 Package labels. Shippers put diamond-shaped hazard warning labels on most hazardous materials packages. These labels inform others of the hazard. If the diamond label will not fit on the package, shippers may put the label on a tag securely attached to the package. For example, compressed gas cylinders that will not hold a label will have tags or decals. Figure 9.2 shows examples of labels. Class 6, poison, toxic and infectious substances. Inhalation hazard, 6, skull and crossbones symbol. PG 3, 6, skull and crossbones. Packing group 3, poison, 6, skull and crossbones symbol. Infectious substance, 6, biohazard symbol. Class 5, oxidizers, oxidizer, 5.1, flame over a circle symbol. Organic peroxide, 5.2, flame over a circle symbol. 9.3.3, lists of regulated products. Placards. Placards are used to warn others of hazardous materials. Placards are signs put on the outside of a vehicle and on bulk packages which identify the hazard class of the cargo. A placarded vehicle must have at least 4 identical placards. They are put on the front, rear and both sides of the vehicle. See figure 9.3. Placards must be readable from all 4 directions. They are at least 9.84 inches square, square on point in a diamond shape. Cargo tanks and other bulk packaging display the ID number of their contents on placards or orange panels or white square on point displays that are the same size as placards. ID numbers are a 4-digit code used by first responders to identify hazardous materials. An ID number may be used to identify more than one chemical. The letters NA or UN will precede the ID number. The US DOT Emergency Response Guidebook lists the chemicals and the ID numbers assigned to them. There are 3 main lists used by shippers, carriers, and drivers when trying to identify hazardous materials. Before transporting a material, look for its name on 3 lists. Some materials are on all lists, others on only one. Always check the following lists. This image shows examples of hazardous materials placards for various hazard classes. 1.5. Blasting agents, Class 1. Explosives, very insensitive. Oxygen, Class 2. Non-flammable gas. Flammable, Class 3. Flammable liquid. Flammable solid, Class 4. Flammable solid. Oxidizer, Class 5.1. Oxidizer. Poison, Class 6. Poison, toxic material. Radioactive, Class 7. Radioactive material. Corrosive, Class 8. Corrosive substance. Dangerous, no class number shown. Generic dangerous material placard. Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subsection 1, 72.101, Hazardous Materials Table. Appendix A to Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subsection 1, 72.101, List of hazardous substances and reportable quantities. Appendix B to Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subsection 1, 72.101, List of marine pollutants. Hazardous Materials Table. Figure 9.4 shows part of the Hazardous Materials Table. Column 1 tells which shipping modes the entry affects and other information concerning the shipping description. The next 5 columns show each material's shipping name, hazard class or division, ID number, packaging group, and required labels. Column 1. 6 different symbols may appear in column 1 of the table. Shows the proper shipping name, hazard class, and packing group to use, even if the material does not meet the hazard class definition. A means the hazardous materials described in column 2 is subject to hazardous materials regulations only when offered or intended for transport by air, unless it is a hazardous substance or waste. W means the hazardous materials described in column 2 is subject to hazardous materials regulations only when offered or intended for transportation by water, unless it is a hazardous substance, waste, or marine pollutant. D means the proper shipping name is appropriate for describing materials for domestic transportation, but may not be proper for international transportation. I identifies a proper shipping name that is used to describe materials in international transportation. A different shipping name may be used when only domestic transportation is involved. G means the hazardous materials described in column 2 is a generic shipping name. A generic shipping name must be accompanied by a technical name on the shipping paper. A technical name is a specific chemical that makes the product hazardous. Here's a summary of the Code of Federal Regulations table for acetaldehyde ammonia. Hazardous materials description and proper shipping. Name, acetaldehyde ammonia. Hazard class or division, 9. Identification number, 11841. Our packing group, PG, 3. Label codes, 9. Special provisions, IB8, IP3, IP7, T1, T33. Packaging, 1-3. Exceptions, 155. Non-bulk, 204. Bulk, 240. Column 2 lists the proper shipping names and descriptions of regulated materials. Entries are in alphabetical order, so you can quickly find the right entry. The table shows proper shipping names in regular type. The shipping paper must show proper shipping names. Names shown in italics are not proper shipping names. Column 3 shows a material's hazard class or division or the entry forbidden. Never transport a forbidden material. Placard hazardous materials shipments are based on the quantity and hazard class. You can decide which placards to use if you know these 3 things. Materials hazard class. Amount being shipped. Amount of all hazardous materials of all classes on your vehicle. Column 4 lists the ID number for each proper shipping name. ID numbers are preceded by the letters UN or NA or ID. The letters NA are associated with proper shipping names that are only used within the US and to and from Canada. The letters ID are associated with proper shipping names recognized by the International Civil Aviation Organization Technical Instructions for Transportation by Air. The ID number must appear on the shipping paper as part of the shipping description and also appear on the package. It also must appear on cargo tanks and other bulk packaging. Police and firefighters use this number to quickly identify the hazardous materials. Column 5 shows the packing group, in Roman numerals, assigned to a material. Column 6 shows the hazard warning labels shippers must put on packages of hazardous materials. Some products require use of more than one label due to multiple hazards being present. Column 7 lists the additional special provisions that apply to this material. When there is an entry in this column, you must refer to the Code of Federal Regulations for specific information. The numbers 1 through 6 in this column mean the hazardous materials is a poison inhalation hazard. Poison inhalation hazard. Materials have special requirements for shipping papers, marking, and placards. Column 8 is a 3-part column showing the section numbers covering the packaging requirements for each hazardous materials. Note, columns 9 and 10 do not apply to transportation by highway. Appendix A to Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subsection 1, 72.101. List of hazardous substances and reportable quantities. Department of Transportation and Environmental Protection Agency want to know about spills of hazardous substances. They are named in the list of hazardous substances and reportable quantities. See Figure 9.5. Column 3 of the list shows each product's reportable quantity. When these materials are being transported in a reportable quantity or greater in one package, the shipper displays the letters RQ on the shipping paper and package. The letters RQ may appear before or after the basic description. You or your employer must report any spill of these materials, which occurs in a reportable quantity. This is Appendix A to 49. Code of Federal Regulations, Subsection 1, 72.101, showing reportable quantities for selected hazardous substances. Phenyl mercaptan, 100 pounds, 45.4 kilograms. Phenyl mercury acetate, 100 pounds, 45.4 kilograms. Phenylthurea, 100 pounds, 45.4 kilograms. Phorate, 10 pounds, 4.54 kilograms. Phosgene, 10 pounds, 4.54 kilograms. Phosphine, 100 pounds, 45.4 kilograms. Phosphoric acid, 5,000 pounds, 2,270 kilograms. Phosphoric acid, diethyl 4-nitrophenyl ester, 100 pounds, 45.4 kilograms. Phosphoric acid, lead plus 2 salt, 2,3 salt, 10 pounds, 0.454 kilograms. If the words inhalation hazard appear on the shipping paper or package, the rules require display of the poison inhalation hazard or poison gas placards as appropriate. These placards must be used in addition to other placards which may be required by the product's hazard class. Always display the hazard class and poison inhalation hazard placards, even for small amounts. Appendix B to Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subsection 1, 72.101 List of Marine Pollutants. Appendix B is a list of chemicals that are toxic to marine life. For highway transportation, this list is only used for chemicals in a container with a capacity of 119 gallons or more without a placard or label as specified by Hazardous Materials Regulations. Any bulk packages of a marine pollutant must display the marine pollutant marking, white triangle with a fish and an X through the fish. This marking, it is not a placard, must also be displayed on the outside of the vehicle. In addition, a notation must be made on the shipping papers near the description of the material. Marine pollutant. Appendix B to Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subsection 1, 72.101 List of Marine Pollutants. Appendix B is a list of chemicals that are toxic to marine life. For highway transportation, this list is only used for chemicals in a container with a capacity of 119 gallons or more without a placard or label as specified by Hazardous Materials Regulations. Any bulk packages of a marine pollutant must display the marine pollutant marking, white triangle with the fish and an X through the fish. This marking, it is not a placard, must also be displayed on the outside of the vehicle. In addition, a notation must be made on the shipping papers near the description of the material. Marine pollutant. 9.3.4. Shipping paper. The shipping paper shown in Figure 9.6 describes a shipment. A shipping paper for hazardous materials must include page numbers if the shipping paper has more than one page. The first page must tell the total number of pages, for example, page 1 of 4, a proper shipping description for each hazardous materials. A shipper's certification signed by the shipper saying they prepared the shipment according to Hazardous Materials Regulations. 9.3.5 Item Description. If a shipping paper describes both hazardous and non-hazardous products, the hazardous materials must be entered first, highlighted in a contrasting color, or identified by an X placed before the shipping description. Identification number, shipping name, hazard class, packing group, in a column titled Hazardous Materials. The letters RQ may be used instead of X if a reportable quantity needs to be identified. The basic description of hazardous materials includes the identification number, proper shipping name, hazard class or division, and packing group, if any, in that order. The packing group is displayed in Roman numerals and may be preceded by packing group. This is a shipping paper for hazardous material. From DF Corporation, 55 Mountain Street, Nowhere, Colorado, to ABC Corporation, 88 Valley Street, Anywhere, Virginia. Quantity, 1 cylinder, 25 pounds. Hazardous materials, reportable quantity. Description. United Nations, number 1076. Phosgene, hazard class 2.3, poison, inhalation, hazard, zone A. Certification. Shipper, Smith, DEF Corporation. Certifies material is properly classified, described, packaged, marked, and labeled per Department of Transportation Regulations. Date, October 15, 2003. Carrier, safety first. Emergency contact, John Smith, 1-800-555-5555. The identification number, shipping name and hazard class must not be abbreviated unless specifically authorized in Hazardous Materials Regulations. The description must also show The total quantity and unit of measure. The number and type of packages, example 6 drums. The letters RQ if a reportable quantity. If the letters RQ appear, the name of the hazardous substance, if not included in the shipping name. For all materials with the letter G, generic in column 1, the technical name of the hazardous materials. Shipping papers also must list an emergency response telephone number unless accepted. The emergency response telephone number is the responsibility of the shipper. It can be used by emergency responders to obtain information about any hazardous materials involved in a spill or fire. The telephone number must be the number of the person offering the hazardous materials for transportation, if the shipper offerer is the emergency response information provider, or the number of an agency or organization capable of and accepting responsibility for providing the detailed information required. The person who is registered with the emergency response information provider must be identified on the shipping paper by name, contract number, or other unique identifier assigned by the emergency response information provider. Shippers also must provide emergency response information to the motor carrier for each hazardous materials being shipped. The emergency response information must be able to be used away from the motor vehicle and provide information on how to safely handle incidents involving the material. At a minimum, it must include the following information: the basic description and technical name, immediate hazards to health, risks of fire or explosion, immediate precautions to be taken in the event of an accident or incident, immediate methods for handling fires, initial methods for handling spills or leaks in the absence of fires, preliminary first aid measures. Such information can be on the shipping paper or some other document that includes the basic description and technical name of the hazardous materials. It also may be in a guidance book, such as the Emergency Response Guidebook. Motor carriers may assist shippers by keeping an emergency response guidebook on each vehicle carrying hazardous materials. The driver must provide the emergency response information to any federal, state, or local authority responding to or investigating a hazardous materials incident. Total quantity, number, and type of packages must appear before or after the basic description. The packaging type and the unit of measurement may be abbreviated. For example, 10 cartons, UN 1263, paint 3, packing group 2, 500 pounds. The shipper of hazardous wastes must put the word waste before the proper shipping name of the material on the shipping paper, hazardous waste manifest. For example, UN 1090, waste acetone 3, packing group 2. A non-hazardous material may not be described by using a hazard class or identification number. Shippers must keep a copy of shipping papers or an electronic image for a period of 2 years, 3 years for hazardous waste, after the material is accepted by the initial carrier. If a shipper provides a carrier service only and is not the originator of the shipment, a carrier is required to keep a copy of the shipping paper or an electronic image for a period of 1 year. Important! To view complete regulatory requirements for the transportation of hazardous materials, refer to Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Parts 171 through 180. 9.3.6. Shipper's Certification. When the shipper packages hazardous materials, they certify that the package has been prepared according to hazardous materials regulations. The signed shipper's certification appears on the original shipping paper. The only exceptions are when a shipper is a private carrier transporting their own product and when the package is provided by the carrier, for example a cargo tank. Unless a package is clearly unsafe or does not comply with hazardous materials regulations, you may accept the shipper's certification concerning proper packaging. Some carriers have additional rules about transporting hazardous materials. Follow your employer's rules when accepting shipments. 9.3.7. Package markings and labels. Shippers print required markings directly on the package and attached label or tag. An important package marking is the name of the hazardous materials. It is the same name as the one on the shipping paper. The requirements for marking vary by package size and material being transported. When required, the shipper will put the following on the package: the name and address of shipper or consignee, the hazardous materials shipping name and identification number. The labels required. It is a good idea to compare the shipping paper to the markings and labels. Always make sure that the shipper shows the correct basic description on the shipping paper and verifies that the proper labels are shown on the packages. If you are not familiar with the material, ask the shipper to contact your office. If hazardous materials regulations require it, the shipper will put RQ, marine pollutant, biohazard, hot, or inhalation hazard on the package. Packages with liquid containers inside will also have package orientation markings with the arrows pointing in the correct upright direction. The labels used always reflect the hazard class of the product. If a package needs more than one label, the labels must be close together, near the proper shipping name. 9.3.8. Recognizing hazardous materials. Learn to recognize shipments of hazardous materials. To find out if the shipment includes hazardous materials, look at the shipping paper. Does it have an entry with a proper shipping name, hazard class, and identification number? A highlighted entry or one with an X or RQ in the hazardous materials column? Other clues suggesting hazardous materials. What business is the shipper in? Paint dealer? Chemical supply? Scientific supply house? Pest control or agricultural supplier? Explosives, munitions, or fireworks dealer? Are there tanks with diamond labels or placards on the premises? What type of package is being shipped? Cylinders and drums are often used for hazardous materials shipments. Is a hazard class label, proper shipping name, or identification number on the package? Are there any handling precautions? 9.3.9. Hazardous waste. Manifest. When transporting hazardous wastes, you must sign by hand and carry a uniform hazardous waste manifest. The name and Environmental Protection Agency registration number of the shippers, carriers, and destination must appear on the manifest. Shippers must prepare, date, and sign by hand the manifest. Treat the manifest as a shipping paper when transporting the waste. Only give the waste shipment to another registered carrier or disposal treatment facility. Each carrier transporting the shipment must sign by hand the manifest. After you deliver the shipment, keep your copy of the manifest. Each copy must have all needed signatures and dates, including those of the person to whom you delivered the waste. 9.3.10. Placarding. Attach the appropriate placards to the vehicle before you drive it. You are only allowed to move an improperly placarded vehicle during an emergency to protect life or property. Placards must appear on both sides and ends of the vehicle. The front placard may be on the front of the tractor or trailer. Each placard must be easily seen from the direction it faces, placed so the words or numbers are level and read from left to right, at least 3 inches away from any other markings. Kept clear of attachments or devices such as ladders, doors, and tarpaulins. Kept clean and undamaged so that the color, format, and message are easily seen. Affixed to a background of contrasting color. Note: the use of drive safely and other slogans is prohibited. To decide which placards to use, you need to know the hazard class of the materials, the amount of hazardous materials shipped, the total weight of all classes of hazardous materials in your vehicle. 9.3.11. Placard tables. There are 2 placard tables, Table 1 and 2. Table 1 materials must be placarded whenever any amount is transported. See Figure 9.7. Except for bulk packaging, the hazard classes in Table 2 need placards only if the total amount transported is 1,001 pounds or more, including the package. Add the amounts from all shipping papers for the Table 2 products you have on board. See Figure 9.8. You may use dangerous placards instead of separate placards for each Table 2 hazard class when you have 1,001 pounds or more of 2 or more Table 2 hazard classes requiring different placards, and you have not loaded 2,205 pounds or more of any Table 2 hazard class material at any one place. You must use the specific placard for this material. The dangerous placard is an option, not a requirement. You can always placard for the materials. If the words inhalation hazard are on the shipping paper or package, you must display poison gas or poison inhalation placards, in addition to any other placards needed by the product's hazard class. The 1,000 pound exception does not apply to these materials. Materials with a secondary hazard of dangerous when wet must display the dangerous when wet placard in addition to any other placards needed by the product's hazard class. The 1,000 pound exception to placarding does not apply to these materials. Placards used to identify the primary or subsidiary hazard class of a material must have the hazard class or division number displayed in the lower corner of the placard. Permanently affixed subsidiary hazard placards without the hazard class number may be used as long as they stay within color specifications. Placards may be displayed for hazardous materials even if not required, so long as the placard identifies the hazard of the material being transported. This is Placard Table 1, any amount from 49. Code of Federal Regulations, Subsection 1, 72.101. If your vehicle contains any amount of the following, you must placard as 1.1 mass explosives, explosives 1.1. 1.2 project hazards, explosives 1.2. 1.3 mass fire hazards, explosives 1.3. 2.3 poisonous toxic gases, poison gas. 4.3 dangerous when wet, dangerous when wet. 5.2 organic peroxide, type B, liquid or solid, temperature controlled. Organic peroxide. 6.1 inhalation hazard zone A and B only. Poison toxic inhalation. On 7 radioactive yellow 3 label only. Radioactive. This is Placard Table 2. 1,001 pounds or more. From 49. Code of Federal Regulations subsection 172.101. If your vehicle contains 1,001 pounds or more of a category, you must use the corresponding placard. 1.4 minor explosion. Explosives 1.4. 1.5 very insensitive. Explosives 1.5. 1.6 extremely insensitive. Explosives 1.6. 2.1 flammable gases. Flammable gas. 2.2 non-flammable gases. Non-flammable gas. 3 flammable liquids. Flammable. Combustible liquid. Combustible. 4.1 flammable solids. Flammable solid. 4.2 spontaneously combustible. Spontaneously combustible. 5.1 oxidizers. Oxidizer. 5.2 organic peroxide, other than type B temp controlled. Organic peroxide. 6.1 poison, other than inhalation hazard zone A or B. Poison. 6.2 infectious substances. None. 8 corrosives. Corrosive. 9 miscellaneous HazMat. Class 9. ORMD. None. Flammable may be used instead of combustible on cargo or portable tanks. Class 9 placard not required for domestic transportation. Bulk packaging is a single container with a capacity greater than 119 gallons. A bulk package and a vehicle transporting a bulk package must be placarded, even if it only has the residue of a hazardous materials. Certain bulk packages only have to be placarded on the 2 opposite sides or display labels. All other bulk packages must be placarded on all 4 sides. Subsections 9.1, 9.2 and 9.3 test your knowledge. 1. Shipper's package in order to fill in the blank the material. The answer is contain. 2. Drivers placard their vehicle to fill in the blank the risk. The answer is communicate. 3. What 3 things do you need to know to decide which placards, if any, you need? The answer is the materials hazard class, the amount of material being shipped, the total weight of all classes of hazardous materials in your vehicle. 4. A HazMat ID number must appear on the fill-in-the-blank and on the fill-in-the-blank. The answer is shipping paper package. 5. Where must you keep shipping papers describing HazMat? Within arm's reach while you're in the driver's seat, or in a pouch on the driver's door, or on the driver's seat when you're out of the vehicle. These questions may be on your test. If you cannot answer them all, reread subsections 9.1, 9.2 and 9.3. Subsection 9.4. Test your knowledge. 6. Around which hazard classes must you never smoke? The answer is Class 1, explosives, Class 2.1, flammable gas, Class 3, flammable liquids, Class 4, flammable solids, and Class 5, oxidizers. 7. Which 3 hazard classes should not be loaded into a trailer that has a heater air conditioner unit? The answer is Class 1, explosives, Class 2.1, flammable gas, and Class 3, flammable liquids. 8. Should the floor liner required for Division 1.1 or 1.2 materials be stainless steel? The answer is no, the floor liner should be either non-metallic material or non-ferrous metal. 9. At the shipper's dock, you are given a paper for 100 cartons of battery acid. You already have 100 pounds of dry silver cyanide on board. What precautions do you have to take? The answer is, you cannot load battery acid, corrosive liquid, with silver cyanide because it could release hydrocyanic acid. You must keep them separate. 10. Name a hazard class that uses transport indexes to determine the amount that can be loaded in a single vehicle. The answer is Class 7, radioactive materials. These questions may be on your test. If you cannot answer them all, reread subsection 9.4. 9.5, bulk packaging marking, loading and unloading. The glossary at the end of this section gives the meaning of the word bulk. Cargo tanks are bulk packaging permanently attached to a vehicle. Cargo tanks remain on the vehicle when you load and unload them. Portable tanks are bulk packaging, which are not permanently attached to a vehicle. The product is loaded or unloaded while the portable tanks are off the vehicle. Portable tanks are then put on a vehicle for transportation. There are many types of cargo tanks in use. The most common cargo tanks are MC306 for liquids and MC3331 for gases. 9.5.1 Markings. You must display the identification number of the hazardous materials in portable tanks and cargo tanks and other bulk packaging such as dump trucks. Identification numbers are in column 4 of the hazardous materials table. The rules require black 100mm 3.9-inch numbers on orange panels, placards, or a white diamond-shaped background if no placards are required. Specification cargo tanks must show retest date markings. Portable tanks must show the lessee or owner's name. They must also display the shipping name of the contents on 2 opposing sides. The letters of the shipping name must be at least 2 inches tall on portable tanks with capacities of more than 1,000 gallons and 1 inch tall on portable tanks with capacities of less than 1,000 gallons. The identification number must appear on each side and each end of a portable tank or other bulk packaging that holds 1,000 gallons or more, and on 2 opposing sides if the portable tank holds less than 1,000 gallons. The identification numbers must still be visible when the portable tank is on the motor vehicle. If they are not visible, you must display the identification number on both sides and ends of the motor vehicle. Intermediate bulk containers, IBCs, are bulk packaging, but are not required to have the owner's name or shipping name. 9.5.2 Tank loading. The person in charge of loading and unloading a cargo tank must be sure a qualified person is always watching. This person watching the loading or unloading must be alert, have a clear view of the cargo tank, be within 25 feet of the tank, know the hazards of the materials involved, know the procedures to follow in an emergency, be authorized to move the cargo tank and able to do so. There are special attendance rules for cargo tanks transporting propane and anhydrous ammonia. Close all manholes and valves before moving a tank of hazardous materials, no matter how small the amount in the tank or how short the distance. Manholes and valves must be closed to prevent leaks. It is illegal to move a cargo tank with open valves or covers unless it is empty, according to Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subsection 1, 73.29. 9.5.3 Flammable liquids. Turn off your engine before loading or unloading any flammable liquids. Only run the engine if needed to operate a pump. Ground a cargo tank correctly before filling it through an open filling hole. Ground the tank before opening the filling hole and maintain the ground until after closing the filling hole. 9.5.4 Compressed gas. Keep liquid discharge valves on a compressed gas tank closed except when loading and unloading. Unless your engine runs a pump for product transfer, turn it off when loading or unloading. If you use the engine, turn it off after product transfer and before you unhook the hose. Unhook all loading-unloading connections before coupling, uncoupling or moving a cargo tank. Always chock trailers and semi-trailers to prevent motion when uncoupled from the power unit. Subsection 9.5. Test your knowledge. 11. What are cargo tanks? The answer is cargo tanks are bulk packaging permanently attached to a vehicle. 12. How is a portable tank different from a cargo tank? The answer is a portable tank is bulk packaging that is not permanently attached to a vehicle, whereas a cargo tank is permanently attached. 13. Your engine runs a pump used during delivery of compressed gas. Should you turn off the engine before or after unhooking hoses after delivery? The answer is you should turn off the engine after product transfer and before you unhook the hose. These questions may be on your test. If you cannot answer them all, reread subsection 9.5. 9.6. Hazardous materials. Driving and parking rules. 9.6.1. Parking with Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives. Never park with Division 1.1, 1.2 or 1.3 explosives within 5 feet of the travelled part of the road. Except for short periods of time needed for vehicle operation necessities, for example fueling, do not park within 300 feet of a bridge, tunnel or building. A place where people gather. An open fire. If you must park to do your job, do so only briefly. Do not park on private property unless the owner is aware of the danger. Someone must always watch the parked vehicle. You may let someone else watch it for you only if your vehicle is on the shipper's property, on the carrier's property, on the consignee's property. You are allowed to leave your vehicle unattended in a safe haven. A safe haven is an approved place for parking unattended vehicles loaded with explosives. Designations of authorized safe havens are usually made by local authorities. 9.6.2. Parking a placarded vehicle not transporting Division 1.1, 1.2 or 1.3 explosives. You may park a placarded vehicle not laden with explosives within 5 feet of the travelled part of the road only if your work requires it. Do so only briefly. Someone must always watch the vehicle when parked on a public roadway or shoulder. Do not uncouple a trailer and leave it with hazardous materials on a public street. Do not park within 300 feet of an open fire. 9.6.3. Attending placarded parked vehicles. The person attending a placarded vehicle must be in the vehicle, awake, and not in the sleeper berth, or within 100 feet of the vehicle, and have it within clear view. Be aware of hazards of the materials being transported. Know what to do in emergencies. Be able to move the vehicle if needed. 9.6.4. No flares. You might break down and have to use stopped vehicle signals. Use reflective triangles or red electric lights. Never use burning signals such as flares or fuses around a tank used for Class 3, flammable liquids, or Division 2.1, flammable gas, whether loaded or empty. Vehicle loaded with Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives. 9.6.5. Route restrictions. Some states and counties require permits to transport hazardous materials or wastes. They may limit the routes you can use. Local rules about routes and permits change often. It is your job as driver to find out if you need permits or must use special routes. Make sure you have all needed papers before starting. If you work for a carrier, ask your dispatcher about route restrictions or permits. If you are an independent trucker planning a new route, check with state agencies where you plan to travel. Some localities prohibit transportation of hazardous materials through tunnels, over bridges, or other roadways. Always check before you start. Whenever placarded, avoid heavily populated areas, crowds, tunnels, narrow streets and alleys. Take other routes, even if inconvenient, unless there is no other way. Never drive a placarded vehicle near open fires unless you can safely pass without stopping. If transporting Division 1.1, 1.2 or 1.3 explosives, you must have a written route plan and follow that plan. Carriers prepare the route plan in advance and give the driver a copy. You may plan the route yourself if you pick up the explosives at a location other than your employer's terminal. Write out the plan in advance. Keep a copy of it with you while transporting the explosives. Deliver shipments of explosives only to authorized persons or leave them in locked rooms designed for explosive storage. A carrier must choose the safest route to transport placarded radioactive materials. After choosing the route, the carrier must tell the driver about the radioactive materials and show the route plan. Transporting explosives in California. When transporting any amount of Division 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 or 1.6. Explosives, or a combination of these explosives together with a Division 1.5 explosives, blasting agent, as a delivery service or for hire, you must use special routes, safe stopping places, safe parking places, and mandatory vehicle inspection locations prescribed by California Highway Patrol. When transporting more than 1,000 pounds of these explosives in private carriage, other than as a delivery service, the same requirements apply. Transporting inhalation hazards in California. Shipments of materials designated as poison inhalation hazard, toxic inhalation hazard, or inhalation hazard. Per Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subsection 1, 72.203, when transported in bulk packaging, Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Subsection 171.8, must also be transported using special routes, safe stopping places, and mandatory vehicle inspection locations prescribed by California Highway Patrol for these materials. Transporting radioactive materials in California. There are also specific routes prescribed by California Highway Patrol for Highway Route Controlled Quantity, HRCQ, and radioactive materials, RAM shipments. Drivers must have in their possession a copy of the routes supplied by the carrier applicable to their shipment when transporting these materials. California General Hazardous Materials Routing Requirement. The following general routing and parking restrictions, California Vehicle Code Subsection 31303, apply to hazardous materials and waste shipments for which the display of vehicle placards and/or markings is required per California Vehicle Code Subsection 27903, except shipments subject to and in conformance with special routing and related requirements. Unless specifically restricted or prohibited, California Vehicle Code Subsection 31304, use state or interstate highways that offer the least transit time whenever possible. Whenever practical, avoid congested highways, places where crowds are assembled, and residence districts, California Vehicle Code Subsection 515. Deviation from designated routes is not excusable on the basis of operating convenience. Do not leave a loaded vehicle unattended or parked overnight in a residence district. Except for specifically restricted or prohibited highways, other highways may be used that provide necessary access for pickup or delivery consistent with safe vehicle operation. Highways that provide reasonable access to fuel, repairs, rest, or food facilities that are designed and intended for commercial vehicle parking when that access is safe and the facility is within 1/2 mile of the points of exit and/or entry to the designated route. Restricted or prohibited routes may only be used when no other lawful alternative exists. California Highway Patrol also publishes a list of restricted or prohibited highways. California Vehicle Code Subsection 31304. Copies of this list may be obtained by contacting the Department of Motor Vehicles Commercial Vehicle Section, Routing Coordinator at 916-3273-310. 9.7 Hazardous Materials Emergencies. 9.7.1 Emergency Response Guidebook. The Department of Transportation has a guidebook for firefighters, police, and industry workers on how to protect themselves and the public from hazardous materials. The proper shipping name and hazardous materials identification number index the guide. Emergency personnel look for these things on the shipping paper. That is why the proper shipping name, identification number, label, and placards must be correct. 9.7.2 Accidents Incidents. As a professional driver, your job at the scene of an accident or incident is to keep people away from the scene. Limit the spread of material only if you can safely do so. Communicate the danger of the hazardous materials to emergency response personnel. Provide emergency responders with the shipping papers and emergency response information. Follow this checklist. Check to see that your driving partner is okay. Keep shipping papers with you. Keep people far away and upwind. Warn others of the danger. Call for help. Follow your employer's instructions. 9.7.4 Responses to Specific Hazards. Class 1 Explosives. If your vehicle has a breakdown or accident while carrying explosives, warn others of the danger. Keep bystanders away. Do not allow smoking or open fire near the vehicle. If there is a fire, warn everyone of the danger of explosion. Remove all explosives before separating vehicles involved in an accident. Place the explosives at least 200 feet from vehicles and occupied buildings. Stay a safe distance away. Class 2 Compressed Gases. If compressed gas is leaking from your vehicle, warn others of the danger. Only permit those involved in removing the hazard or wreckage to get close. You must notify the shipper if compressed gas is involved in any accident. Unless you are fueling machinery used in road construction or maintenance, do not transfer a flammable compressed gas from one tank to another on any public roadway. Class 3 Flammable Liquids. If you are transporting a flammable liquid and have an accident or your vehicle breaks down, prevent bystanders from gathering. Warn people of the danger. Keep them from smoking. Never transport a leaking cargo tank farther than needed to reach a safe place. Get off the roadway if you can do so safely. Do not transfer flammable liquid from one vehicle to another on a public roadway except in an emergency. Class 4, flammable solids, and Class 5, oxidizing materials. If a flammable solid or oxidizing material spills, warn others of the fire hazard. Do not open smoldering packages of flammable solids. Remove them from the vehicle if you can safely do so. Also, remove unbroken packages if they will decrease the fire hazard. Class 6, poisonous materials and infectious substances. It is your job to protect yourself, other people, and property from harm. Remember that many products classed as poison are also flammable. If you think a Division 2.3, poison gases, or Division 6.1, poison materials, might be flammable, take the added precautions needed for flammable liquids or gases. Do not allow smoking, open flame, or welding near the vehicle. Warn others of the hazards of fire, inhaling vapors, or coming in contact with the poison. Class 7, radioactive materials. If radioactive material is involved in a leak or broken package, tell your dispatcher or supervisor as soon as possible. If there is a spill or an internal container might be damaged, do not touch or inhale the material. Do not use the vehicle until it is cleaned and checked with a survey meter. Class 8, corrosive materials. If corrosives spill or leak during transportation, be careful to avoid further damage or injury when handling the containers. Parts of the vehicle exposed to a corrosive liquid must be thoroughly washed with water. After unloading, wash out the interior as soon as possible before reloading. 9.7.5, required notification. The National Response Center helps coordinate emergency response to chemical hazards. It is a resource to police and firefighters. It maintains a 24-hour toll-free phone line, 1-800-400-248-802. You or your employer must phone when any of the following occur as a direct result of a hazardous materials incident. A person is killed. An injured person requires hospitalization. Estimated property damage exceeds $50,000. The general public is evacuated for more than 1 hour. One or more major transportation arteries or facilities are closed for 1 hour or more. Fire, breakage, spillage, or suspected radioactive contamination occurs. Fire, breakage, spillage, or suspected contamination occurs involving shipment of infectious substances, bacteria, or toxins. Be prepared to give your name and address of the carrier you work for, phone number where you can be reached, date, time, and location of incident, the extent of injuries, if any, classification, name, and quantity of hazardous materials involved, if such information is available, type of incident, nature of hazardous materials involvement, and whether a continuing danger to life exists at the scene. Carriers must make detailed written reports within 30 days of an incident to Chemtrek 18 100 400 24 9 300. The Chemical Transportation Emergency Center, Chemtrek, in Washington District of Columbia, also has a 24-hour toll-free phone line. Chemtrek was created to provide emergency personnel with technical information about the physical properties of hazardous materials. The National Response Center and Chemtrek are in close communication. If you call either one, they will tell the other about the problem when appropriate. Do not leave radioactive yellow 2 or yellow 3 labeled packages near people, animals, or film longer than shown in Figure 9.10. This is Radioactive Separation Table A, Figure 9.10, which shows the minimum separation distances required between radioactive material and either undeveloped film or people cargo compartments. Structure. Left column, Total Transport Index. Ranges from none up to 40.150.0. Middle columns, IPSWAS, minimum distance in feet to the nearest undeveloped film, broken down by exposure time. 0-2 hours, 2-4 hours, 4-8 hours, 8-12 hours, over 12 hours. Right column equals minimum distance in feet to people or cargo compartment partitions. How to read it. For a given transport index, find the row and then the column matching the expected exposure time. That cell gives the required distance in feet. Examples. Transport index 0.1, 1.0, 1 foot for 0, 2 hours, 5 feet for over 12 hours, 1 foot from people cargo partitions. Transport index 20.130.0. 7 feet for 0-2 hours, 29 feet for over 12 hours, 5 feet from people cargo partitions. If transport index is none, 0 feet for all categories. In short, the higher the transport index and the longer the exposure time, the greater the required separation distance. California. Immediate spill reporting. Spills of hazardous materials on California highways must be reported immediately to the California Highway Patrol Office or Police Department having traffic control jurisdiction, California Vehicle Code Section 231.12.5. Classes of hazardous materials. Hazardous materials is categorized into 9 major hazard classes and additional categories for consumer commodities and combustible liquids. The classes of hazardous materials are listed in Figure 9.11. This is Hazard Class Definitions Table B, Figure 9.11, which lists hazard classes, their names, and example materials. Structure, 3 columns: class, class name, example. Contents: Class 1, explosives, ammunition, dynamite, fireworks. Class 2, gases, propane, oxygen, helium. Class 3, flammable, gasoline, acetone. Class 4, flammable solids, matches, fuses. Class 5, oxidizers, ammonium nitrate, hydrogen peroxide. Class 6, poisons, pesticides, arsenic. Class 7, radioactive, uranium, plutonium. Class 8, corrosives, hydrochloric acid, battery fluid. Class 9, miscellaneous hazardous materials, formaldehyde, asbestos. Class none, other regulated material domestic, ORMD, hairspray, charcoal. Class none, combustible liquids, fuel oils, lighter fluid. It's a quick reference for matching hazard class numbers to the type of material they cover. Subsections 9.6 and 9.7. Test your knowledge. 14. If your placarded trailer has dual tires, how often should you check the tires? The answer is, you should check the tires at the beginning of each trip and each time the vehicle is parked. 50. What is a safe haven? The answer is, a safe haven is a designated place where a driver can stop and park a vehicle carrying hazardous materials without causing a risk to the public. 60. How close to the travelled part of the roadway can you park with Division 1.2 or 1.3 materials? The answer is, you should park at least 5 feet away from the travelled part of the roadway. 70. How close can you park to a bridge, tunnel or building with the same load? The answer is, you should park at least 300 feet away from a bridge, tunnel or building with the same load. 18. What type of fire extinguisher must placarded vehicles carry? The answer is, placarded vehicles must carry a fire extinguisher with a rating of 10 BC or more. 90. You are hauling 100 pounds of Division 4.3, dangerous when wet materials. Do you need to stop before a railroad highway crossing? The answer is, yes, you need to stop before a railroad highway crossing. 20. At a rest area, you discover your hazardous materials shipment is slowly leaking from the vehicle. There is no phone around. What should you do? The answer is, keep people away from the vehicle and stay upwind. Try to contain the leak if possible, and get help as soon as possible. 21. What is the Emergency Response Guide, ERG? The answer is, the Emergency Response Guide is a guidebook developed by the Department of Transportation for emergency responders to identify hazards and respond to incidents involving hazardous materials. These questions may be on your test. If you cannot answer them all, reread subsections 9.6 and 9.7. Each sentence can be long if the input requires it, but must not exceed 30 words. If a sentence is longer, split it into 2 or more natural sentences without altering the content. Subsection 9.8. Hazardous materials. Glossary. This glossary presents definitions of certain terms used in this section. A complete glossary of terms can be found in the Federal Hazardous Materials Regulations, Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 171.8. You should have an up-to-date copy of these rules for your reference. Note, you will not be tested on this glossary. Subsection 9.8.1. Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 171.8 Definitions and Abbreviations. Bulk packaging. Packaging, other than a vessel or barge, including a transport vehicle or freight container in which hazardous materials are loaded with no intermediate form of containment and which has 22. A maximum capacity greater than 119 gallons, 450 liters, as a receptacle for a liquid. 23. A maximum net mass greater than 882 pounds, 400 kilograms, and maximum capacity greater than 119 gallons, 450 liters, as a receptacle for a solid. Or 24. A water capacity greater than 1,000 pounds, 454 kilograms, as a receptacle for a gas as defined in Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 173.115. Cargo tank, a bulk packaging which is 1. A tank intended primarily for the carriage of liquids or gases and includes appurtenances, reinforcements, fittings, and closures. For tank definition, see Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Sections 178.345, Subsection C, 178.337, Subsection 1, or 178.338, Subsection 1, as applicable. 2. Permanently attached to or forms a part of a motor vehicle or not permanently attached to a motor vehicle, but which by reason of its size, construction, or attachment to a motor vehicle is loaded or unloaded without being removed from the motor vehicle. 3. Not fabricated under a specification for cylinders, portable tanks, tank cars, or multi-unit tank car tanks. Carrier. A person who transports passengers or property in commerce by rail, car, aircraft, motor vehicle, or vessel. Consignee. The business or person to whom a shipment is delivered. Division. A subdivision of a hazard class. Environmental Protection Agency. United States Environmental Protection Agency. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. Freight container. A reusable container having a volume of 64 cubic feet or more, designed and constructed to permit being lifted with its contents intact and intended primarily for containment of packages, in unit form, during transportation. Fuel tank. A tank, other than a cargo tank, used to transport flammable or combustible liquid or compressed gas for the purpose of supplying fuel for propulsion of the transport vehicle to which it is attached, or for the operation of other equipment on the transport vehicle. Gross weight or mass. The weight of the packaging plus the weight of its contents. Hazard class. The category of hazard assigned to a hazardous material under the definition criteria of Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Part 173, and the provisions of the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 172.101 Table. A material may meet the defining criteria for more than one hazard class, but is assigned to only one hazard class. Hazardous materials. Hazardous materials. A substance or material which has been determined by the United States Secretary of Transportation to be capable of posing an unreasonable risk to health, safety, and property when transported in commerce and which has been so designated. The term includes hazardous substances, hazardous wastes, marine pollutants, elevated temperature materials, and materials designated as hazardous in the Hazardous Materials Table of Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 172.101, and materials that meet the definition criteria for hazard classes and divisions in Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Part 173, Subchapter C. Hazardous substance, a material including its mixtures and solutions that 1 is listed in Appendix A to Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Sections 173 and 172.101. 2 is in a quantity in one package which equals or exceeds the reportable quantity, listed in Appendix A to Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Part 173 and Section 172.101. And 3 when in a mixture or solution for radionuclides conforms to Paragraph 7 of Appendix A to Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Part 173 and Section 172.101. Other than radionuclides, is in a concentration by weight which equals or exceeds the concentration corresponding to the reportable quantity of the material as shown in Figure 9.12. This is hazardous substance concentrations, Figure 9.12. A table that links reportable quantity, values to their corresponding concentration by weight. Structure. Left column, ill-reportable quantity pounds, kilograms. Middle column equals concentration by weight, %. Right column equals concentration by weight, parts per million, parts per million. Values. 5,000 pounds, 2,270 kilograms, 10%, 100,000 parts per million. 1,000 pounds, 454 kilograms, 2%, 20,000 parts per million. 100 pounds, 45.4 kilograms, 0.2%, 2,000 parts per million. 10 pounds, 4.54 kilograms, 0.02%, 200 parts per million. 1 pound, 0.454 kilograms, 0.002%, 20 parts per million. Essentially, as the reportable quantity decreases by a factor of 10, both the percent concentration and parts per million also decrease by a factor of 10. This definition does not apply to petroleum products that are lubricants or fuels. See Code of Federal Regulations, Title 40, Section 300.6. Hazardous waste, for the purposes of this chapter, means any material that is subject to the hazardous waste manifest requirements of the Environmental Protection Agency specified in Code of Federal Regulations, Title 40, Section 262. Intermediate bulk container. A rigid or flexible portable packaging other than a cylinder or portable tank which is designed for mechanical handling. Standards for intermediate bulk containers manufactured in the United States are set forth in Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 178, Subparts N and O. Limited quantity. The maximum amount of a hazardous material for which there may be specific labeling or packaging exceptions. Marking. The descriptive name, identification number, instructions, cautions, weight, specification, United Nations, marks, or combinations thereof, required on outer packaging of hazardous materials. Mixture. A material composed of more than one chemical compound or element. Name of contents. The proper shipping name as specified in Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 172.101. Non-bulk packaging, a packaging which has 1. A maximum capacity of 119 gallons, 450 liters, or less, as a receptacle for a liquid. 2. A maximum net mass less than 882 pounds, 400 kilograms, or less, and a maximum capacity of 119 gallons, 450 liters, or less, as a receptacle for a solid. Or 3. A water capacity greater than 1,000 pounds, 454 kilograms or less, as a receptacle for a gas, as defined in Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 173.115. 4. Regardless of the definition of bulk packaging, a maximum net mass of 400 kilograms, 882 pounds, or less for a bag or box conforming to the applicable requirements for specification packaging, including the maximum net mass limitations provided in Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Part 178, Subpart L. Knows not otherwise specified. Outage or ullage, the amount by which a packaging falls short of being liquid full, usually expressed in % by volume. The amount of outage required for liquids in cargo tank depends on how much the material will expand with temperature change during transit. Different materials expand at different rates. Enough outage must be allowed so that the tank will not be full at 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Pipeline and hazardous materials. Safety Administration. Pipeline and hazardous materials. Safety Administration. United States Department of Transportation, Washington, District of Columbia. 20590. Portable tank. Bulk packaging, except a cylinder having a water capacity of 1,000 pounds or less, designed primarily to be loaded onto, on, or temporarily attached to a transport vehicle or ship, and equipped with skids, mountings, or accessories to facilitate handling the tank by mechanical means. It does not include a cargo tank, tank car, multi-unit tank car tank, or trailer carrying 3AX, 3AAX, or 3T cylinders. Proper shipping name, the name of the hazardous material shown in Roman print, not italics, in Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 172.101. Pounds per square inch, pounds per square inch. Pounds per square inch absolute, pounds per square inch absolute. Reportable quantity. The quantity specified in Column 2 of Appendix A to Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 172.101 for any material identified in Column 1 of Appendix A. Shipper's certification. A statement on a shipping paper signed by the shipper saying they prepared the shipment properly according to law. For example, this is to certify that the above-named materials are properly classified, described, packaged, marked and labeled, and are in proper condition for transportation according to the applicable regulations or the Department of Transportation. Or, I hereby declare that the contents of this consignment are fully and accurately described above by the proper shipping name and are classified, packaged, marked, and labeled placarded, and are in all respects in proper condition for transport by insert mode of transportation such as rail, aircraft, motor vehicle, or vessel, according to applicable international and national government regulations. Shipping paper. A shipping order, bill of lading, manifest or other shipping document serving a similar purpose prepared in accordance with Code of Federal Regulations, Title 49, Section 172, Subpart C. Technical name, a recognized chemical name or microbiological name currently used in scientific and technical handbooks, journals, and texts. Transport vehicle. A cargo-carrying vehicle such as an automobile, van, tractor, truck, semi-trailer, tank car, or rail car used for transportation of cargo by any mode. Each cargo-carrying body, trailer, rail car, etc., is a separate transport vehicle. United Nations Standard Packaging. Packaging specifications conforming to standards in United Nations recommendations. United Nations, United Nations.